Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned on the fasten seatbelt sign. If you haven't already done so, please make sure the volume of this podcast is set perfectly to your listening enjoyment. Please take your seat, whether that's on the treadmill, car, sofa, or bed, and buckle in for the last trip. My name is Jamie Beebe, and I'll be your tour guide, recreating someone's last days in paradise. On behalf of myself and everyone behind the scenes, please enjoy the Last Trip podcast. And because nobody likes a long flight to get to where they want to be, let's prepare for takeoff. 21-year-old Mieke Oort left Massachusetts after her high school graduation to attend college in the Netherlands. Like most college kids, she was having the time of her life, learning new things, exploring, making friends, and dating. But things went terribly wrong when she met a man on Tinder. They went on a couple dates, but when Mieke didn't want to continue dating him, he stalked and then murdered her on March 6, 2022. The case was dubbed the Tinder Murder throughout the Netherlands. And this case is a little bit different because we know what happened to Mieke, and her murderer was caught. But I felt this was an important case to highlight because so many kids go to other countries to study and may not realize all the dangers that are out there. Mieke chose NHL Stenden University of Applied Sciences to go for her college degree. It's a well-regarded institution in Leeuwarden, Netherlands, that offers a wide range of professional education programs. And it has a strong international population, with students from over 100 countries. They offer several English top programs and encourage students to participate in exchange programs, internships, and projects abroad. Leeuwarden is a charming city in the northern Netherlands, known for its rich history, vibrant culture, and scenic canals. It's a great destination for students, tourists, and a great place to live. The historic city center is filled with beautiful old buildings, narrow streets, and those gorgeous canals. And the town is actually crisscrossed by those canals. Taking a boat tour is a relaxing way to see the city. You can also rent a kayak or a small boat to explore the waterways at your own pace. And there are plenty of other great sites in the city, including the Friesland Museum. It's a must visit for anyone interested in the history and culture of Friesland. They have a vast collection of art, artifacts, and exhibits related to the region's history, including a section dedicated to the famous Dutch spy, Mata Hari, who was born in Leeuwarden. There's a lovely park located also near the city center, perfect for leisurely stroll or picnic. It's a popular spot with locals and offers a peaceful retreat from the hustle and bustle of the city. The De Oudehoeve is Leeuwarden's answer to the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It was originally intended to be a church tower, but construction was halted when it began to tilt. Today, visitors can climb to the top for a great view of the city. A really fun and unique thing to do in Leeuwarden is to find the miniature people. Yeah, you heard me. Find the miniature people. Photographer Michiel Tilma photographed tiny scenes less than 2 centimeters high in special places throughout the city and then left them behind to be found. So now you can walk through the streets and alleys and find them. There are 53 locations with a total of 67 scenes. So find them if you can. Now, if you know me, you know I love seeing old churches when I travel. And the Great Church is a large historic church that dates back to the 13th century. The architecture is impressive. It's adorned with beautiful stained glass windows and a peaceful atmosphere. If you're into shopping and dining, Nieuwstad is one of Leeuwarden's main shopping streets, lined with a mix of historic buildings, boutiques, and cafes. Overall, Leeuwarden is a great place to visit, a great place to experience college, and a great place to live. But through a tragic turn of events and the actions of one person, Mieke lost her life there, and countless lives were affected. Let's get to know Mieke Oort. Mieke Oort was born on May 20th, 2000, in the cute little town of Winchester, Massachusetts. Her mom, Celine, was originally from Malaysia, and her dad was from the Netherlands. They met in Guatemala through a mutual classmate and instantly fell in love. Mieke had an older sister, Danique, and her childhood included sledding down hills in the snow, skating in local ponds, biking, swimming in the lakes, and kite surfing. She was really close with her family, but a bit shy and withdrawn toward others as a child. Her mom said she looked at the world from behind my skirts, preferring to stay at home with her mother. She had a golden heart. She was the one who asked her friend, who was in his last weeks of life due to cancer, to the high school prom dance. Mieke was a kinematic rather than conceptual learner. She had a beautiful grace and learned movements quickly. She also loved music and was often singing, playing piano, and creating videos to music. She applied her harmonious sense of style to her outfits as well as her lifestyle. But learning was a challenge for Mieke. So during her senior year, Celine and Michael decided to look for further educational opportunities beyond the competitive and individual focus that's typical in the American higher education system. They turned to the Netherlands, where Michael was born and still has a lot of family. In February of 2019, Celine and Mieke visited an open house at NHL Stenden in Leeuwarden, Netherlands, because that was her dream school. She liked the educational principle of design-based education, which involves learning by trying and doing. So when Mieke graduated from Winchester High School, she moved to the Netherlands to study at the Stenden University. She would pursue her bachelor's in leisure and events management and was scheduled to graduate in 2024. Being there, at first, she struggled with being so far from home, but eventually she blossomed. Sparkling is what teachers and fellow students called her, as well as diligent, kind, and wise. She was doing well in school, and her family was so proud of her. She had passed her business economics and was on her way to the next level. Mieke was thriving. She loved her life and was looking forward to graduation. She loved going to the Friday markets in town, going to parties, hanging out with friends, and in the last few months before her death, she moved and found the most wonderful roommates. They laughed and played and cooked fantastic meals together. She was having the college experience we all dream of. She had been home during the quarantine, and the week before she went back, she hung out with her family. She played tennis with her father, swam in the lake, biked, went kiteboarding, and took a ferry to Martha's Vineyard to cycle along the coast to towns and beaches. The last time her family hugged her was September 4th, 2021. When they sent her on the flight back to the Netherlands after a day of walking and having lunch in Davis Square. Her dad said she was the kindest, most trusting person he knew. And the last time they talked, the first thing she asked was if he was okay. The day Mieke died, she was supposed to discuss her new research topic with her father. The topic of her research was Tinder. He didn't even have time to open her first draft before finding out she was gone. What happened to this beautiful, sweet girl on March 6, 2022? And who is the man that took her life? More after a message from our sponsors.
Ashley, I've been given the gift of prophecy, and God has given me a message for you.
My name is Maddie Lassiter.
And my name is Ashley Teeter, and I'm Maddie's older sister, and we're the hosts of the Cult Next Door podcast.
This isn't just another cult story. This is a story that spans over decades, involving two different apocalyptic cults and a father whose control and manipulation tore our family apart.
First-hand accounts of decades of estrangement and shunning, disturbing revelations and visions from God, and spiritual, mental, and physical abuse only scratch the surface of this story. Find The Cult Next Door on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thomas R., as he was identified by the media, was 27 years old. He still lived at home with his parents and sister, above an optical shop his family owned in Leer, Germany, about an hour-and-a-half drive from Leeuwarden. He worked as an all-around service technician, and just a few days before he murdered Mieke, he bought a house with his sister, and the two of them were planning to live there together. Thomas and Mieke met in the beginning of October 2021 on the dating app Tinder. Thomas said that after a few days of chatting, they went on some dates, but there was never any intimacy. He said, There were trips. We went away for weekends. I saw her several times a week. She didn't want a relationship, but it was more than dating. I found it very confusing. When she laughed, my day was good. When she had a bad day, I felt bad. To put it simply, Thomas wanted a relationship, but Mieke wanted to have a good time during her college years and wasn't looking for anything serious. Or maybe Thomas just wasn't the one for her. Either way, she let him know that it wasn't working for her. She stopped contacting him and even let him know she was seeing someone else. When she told him she didn't want to be with him, he attempted suicide multiple times. In one case, police pulled him down from the roof of a building. In another, he took 40 sleeping pills. When that didn't get the reaction he wanted from her, he began to stalk her. He said he didn't trust her, so he put a GPS tracker on her bicycle. Since everyone uses bikes to get around, he could watch everywhere she went. He sent her expensive gifts she didn't ask for, followed her through the Amigos app, followed her in person, harassed her through WhatsApp, and drove up and down her street. He later told the courts that he became so obsessed he couldn't stop, saying, "I wanted to stop, but I couldn't. She was on my mind." When he saw her with another man, he started to get angry. He went to her apartment and retrieved all the gifts he had given her. But he later told her he regretted doing that, and because of his constant contact, she would lightly respond, which gave him hope. And this is something many stalking victims do. They learn to placate their stalkers and give them just enough so the stalking doesn't escalate to violence. Mieke's friends knew about her problems with Thomas. They knew he was stalking her and that she didn't want to be with him, but she told them she wanted to solve it herself. Mieke told her boyfriend she was fearful Thomas would do crazy things, and at his insistence, they went to the police together. But unfortunately, they never followed up on the report. On March 4th, Thomas bought some gasoline and searched the internet for instructions on how to make Molotov cocktails, later telling the courts that he wanted to set himself on fire to get rid of his obsession with Mieke, but he denied it was part of a premeditated plan to murder her. On the evening of March 5th, Thomas wanted to meet up with Mieke, but she said no and told him it was because she was sick. Instead of taking no for an answer, Thomas didn't believe her and drove to her house. She lived above a tattoo shop, and the building was having a party that night. He called her repeatedly, but she didn't answer because she blocked his number. He looked through the windows and saw Mieke dancing with another man at the party, later telling the courts that he got more and more frustrated and crazier. He left her house and drove the hour-and-a-half back to his home in Leeuwarden. He picked up the 2 Molotov cocktails that he made earlier, a knife, and a hammer. He then drove the hour-and-a-half back to Mieke's apartment in Leeuwarden. He told the courts he was only home for a few minutes, and that the round-trip drive was like a black hole for him. When he got back to Mieke's apartment, he threw a Molotov cocktail against her window and a fire started. When asked what he was thinking at that time, Thomas said, "Panic and anger, all kinds of things went through me. It went automatically." After the fire started, he tried to get in through the door but couldn't, so he climbed onto the roof terrace and smashed a window in. Once inside, he saw Mieke and the man she was dating standing there. He said, "I went after Mieke. She ran away, but I was faster. I stabbed her on the stairs, but I don't know how many times. Then I went downstairs in a panic, but the door was locked. I ran back upstairs and met the man, and I stabbed him too." When the courts asked him about stabbing Mieke, he said, "I don't know how often and where. I was panicking. I wanted answers, not to hurt her physically." But after stabbing the man Mieke was seeing, he turned and saw her lying on the couch. That's when he went over and stabbed her again. At that point, one of her roommates tried to stop him and was also injured. Thomas then continued back upstairs the way he got in, jumped off the roof, and ran away. The whole attack lasted no longer than 2 minutes. And although Thomas told the courts he never wanted to hurt Mieke physically, he stabbed her 15 times. But he said it all happened automatically. In the early morning hours of Sunday, March 6th, Mieke was killed. The man she had been dating was seriously injured, and her roommate sustained minor injuries. Police arrived when someone called about the fire. They quickly put it out, and that's when they discovered Mieka's body and her badly injured boyfriend inside. Her roommate later reported himself injured to one of the ambulances. When asked why he did it, Thomas said he was in love with Mieke and got jealous when he saw her dancing with another man. After he attacked the trio, he ran out of the building and fled to Germany in his car. He called his parents along the way and confessed what he had done. His parents called the police and turned their son in. They located him near the German border, and German authorities intercepted him in Leer, and he was arrested at about 5 a.m. His parents later gave a statement, only saying they were perplexed by their son's alleged crime. I imagine that doing the right thing and turning him in was extremely difficult. What happened to Thomas after he was caught? We'll discuss that after a message from our sponsors. After Thomas was caught fleeing the scene of the crime, he was detained and eventually brought back to the Netherlands to stand trial. This is when he confessed to the murder and violence. He took the life of someone he claimed to love, and utterly devastated the lives of everyone that did love her, as well as drastically changing the life of her boyfriend and roommate who tried to save her. The public prosecution recommended a prison sentence of 20 years and TBS with compulsory treatment. A TBS with compulsory treatment is an intense, individualized therapy that lasts a maximum of 4 years for major crimes. But in the case of a violent crime, such as murder, the judge can extend the measure indefinitely if the chance of relapse has decreased insufficiently. TBS with compulsory treatment always ends conditionally. This means that the offender must also adhere to agreements with the probation service after the measure. There is no longer a maximum term for the conditional termination of TBS. This means that judges can continue to extend supervision if the risk of relapse has not decreased sufficiently. This can be done annually or every 2 years. Now, to me, 20 years is not enough for taking a life, but I do appreciate the courts forcing mental health into his prison term. Unfortunately, they only gave him 15 years in prison, and he will have to submit to additional time undergoing compulsory psychiatric treatment at a TBS institution. And this is because, according to psychological experts, Thomas struggles with an autism spectrum disorder and personality disorder. As a result, he is unable to deal with elevated emotions and has an increased vulnerability to becoming psychologically disturbed in moments of high tension. The court agreed with the experts and ruled Thomas was somewhat less accountable for his acts due to those disorders, and only handed him the 15-year sentence. Thomas's defense also tried to claim that he acted spontaneously, and that the murder was not premeditated, saying that he wanted to meet Mieke at the door after firebombing the residence, just to talk to her. The court in Leeuwarden found that Thomas intended to kill Mieke that day, that he acted deliberately when packing his weapons after driving all the way home to Leer, climbing the drain pipe onto the roof of the flat, smashing the patio door window with the hammer, and entering the house, culminating in him violently stabbing both victims. But then the court also ruled that stabbing Mieke's boyfriend qualified as attempted manslaughter, rather than attempted murder, because they felt that Thomas was focused on Mieke with his plan, so this justified the lesser charge they gave him. Overall, the courts said that Thomas had enough time to thoughtfully consider what he was doing, so it was not a spontaneous act. After the trial, the prosecutor said, "What I gather from all the conversations and incidents prior to the weekend in question in early March is that during the relationship, there were several moments of attraction and repulsion between the two. There was also uncertainty from Mieke about the relationship on one hand. On the other hand, there is the problem the suspect's autism, in which he does not know how to act and what is socially acceptable in social situations. He just needed that clarity. I think these two components have greatly reinforced each other. On the evening of the incident, the hurt caused by the renewed rejection by Mieke, the presence of the new man, and the last hope for Thomas, which was shattered as a result, seems to have been the straw that broke the camel's back. To me, this being said by the prosecutor is total victim blaming. Thomas stalked and murdered Mieke and should pay for it with a sentence much longer than 15 years. The courts also said that in order to reduce the chance of further escalations of violence, Thomas will receive treatment aimed at learning to attach securely, gain more individuality, and learn to behave differently in relationships with others. In addition, Thomas must learn how to recognize anger and frustrations, how to deal with them. The avoidance and emotional division must be broken, and he must learn to channel his anger appropriately. This is the TBS compulsory treatment program that he will have to do. Mieke's family said through their attorney that they are seriously disappointed with the prison sentence imposed by the court. They knew they could not count on a sentence such as what would be imposed in the United States, but they really cannot live with a sentence of less than 20 years. Mieke's boyfriend felt the assault was totally premeditated. He said he knew exactly what he was doing. We were stabbed in our most vulnerable spots. It is by sheer luck that I survived. And although he survived, his life was radically changed. He was stabbed 3 times in the chest. He cannot remember anything about the incident, but daily he sees the scars that remind him of the violence and its impact. The life-saving actions by first responders in the home ensured that there was no double murder on the subpoena, but he almost died. And now he lives with remembering that night, the scars it left, and Mieke, who didn't survive. At her memorial, her father said to the crowd, "When we send our kids to college, we think they are mature adults. The reality is that they don't necessarily make rational decisions, and they can't really see what true danger is. You have to get the students to see the danger signs and have the ability to reach out to a professional to analyze the situation to see if it is truly dangerous or not. I think that if that were in place, then this tragedy may have been avoidable." Many people study abroad just like Mieke was doing, and there are a variety of great reasons to do this. Experiencing a new culture firsthand allows students to gain a deeper understanding of different ways of life, language, customs, and traditions. It can broaden their perspective and enhance global awareness. Many students are looking for specialized courses or programs that may not be available at their home institutions. Studying abroad can offer unique academic experiences such as research opportunities or access to distinguished professors. And living in a foreign country challenges young people to adapt to new environments, solve problems independently, and develop resilience. An experience like this often leads to increased self-confidence and maturity. Employers value candidates with international experience because it demonstrates adaptability, cross-cultural communication skills, and a global perspective. So studying abroad can make a resume stand out. It also builds global networking, which can be invaluable for future career opportunities and personal connections. But best of all, studying abroad is an opportunity to travel, explore new places, and experience adventures they may not have access to otherwise. But, like I always say, there is crime in every corner of the world. People who study abroad are not necessarily more likely to be the victims of crime compared to other travelers or residents in foreign countries. However, there are certain factors that can influence the likelihood of encountering crime. Students may be unfamiliar with local customs, safe and unsafe areas, and common scams, which can make them more vulnerable, especially in the early days of their stay. Difficulty in communicating effectively can sometimes make it harder for students to seek help or avoid risky situations. Misunderstandings or a lack of awareness about local norms can sometimes lead to unintended risky behavior, like being out alone at night in unsafe areas. Some students might choose housing that is cheaper but located in less secure areas, increasing their exposure to potential crime. Despite these risks, most study abroad programs and universities provide extensive orientation sessions, safety advice, and support systems to help students minimize risks. It's also important to note that crime rates vary widely depending on the country and city, just as they do in different parts of a student's home country. And that brings us to the big question. Are the Netherlands safe to visit? Yes, The Netherlands is an extremely safe country. Right now, the U.S. Department of State has the country at a level 2, exercise increased caution due to terrorism. They say terrorists continue plotting possible attacks in the Netherlands. Terrorists may attack with little or no warning, targeting tourist locations, transportation hubs, markets and shopping malls, local government facilities, hotels, clubs, restaurants, places of worship, parks, major sporting and cultural events, educational institutions, airports, and other public areas. Leeuwarden, where Mieke was living, boasts a high level of safety for residents and tourists. Petty crimes like pickpocketing, bag snatching, and bicycle theft do occur, but they are relatively uncommon compared to the other larger, more densely populated cities around the world. Let's get into some of the best ways to stay safe in dating while traveling or studying abroad. First of all, make sure you understand cultural differences. Different countries have varying norms and expectations around dating. Research in advance to avoid misunderstandings or issues that can come up. Be aware of any common scams or risky situations that travelers might face in the local dating scene. Before meeting someone, verify their identity by video chatting or doing a quick background check. Don't share sensitive details like your home address, hotel name, or financial information. For your first few dates, choose well-lit public places like cafes, restaurants, or public tourist spots. Avoid secluded areas or going directly to someone's home. Don't rely on your date to pick you up or drop you off. Use trusted transportation options like taxis, rideshares, or public transportation. Share your location with a friend or family member and let them know where you're going, who you're going to meet, and when you expect to return. And while you're there, check in with someone you trust to let them know how it's going. Drinking can impair your judgment and make you more vulnerable. So if you choose to drink, do so in moderation. And always keep an eye on your drink to avoid being drugged. Also, keep your phone charged. Have enough money to get back to your accommodations. And have an exit plan, just in case things feel off and you need to leave quickly. Some tips on safe dating and preventative stalking behavior includes being cautious sharing details until you know someone. So avoid sharing daily routines, places you frequently visit, where you work, and your neighborhood. And you don't even have to give someone your last name until you know the other person. Also, you can set your social media profiles to private or avoid posting real-time updates of your location or tagging locations until after you've left. When meeting someone new, consider using a secondary phone number, email address, or social media account that you can easily change or deactivate. And if someone is making you uncomfortable, be direct about your boundaries. Let them know what behavior is unacceptable. If you're not interested in further contact, clearly and politely say so. Avoid leaving things ambiguous because this can be misinterpreted. Always watch for those red flags. Be wary of someone who is love bombing or overly focused on you too quickly, shows up uninvited, or constantly demands your attention. Frequent calls, texts, or messages, especially after you've asked for space, are major red flags. If you feel like someone is stalking you, tell your friends and family immediately. It is not your fault, and it is not something to be ashamed of. Let people help you. Stalkers often try to isolate their targets, so stay connected with your social circle. Keep a record of any suspicious or concerning behavior. Document everything, including dates, times, and what happened, because this will help if you need to go to authorities or the situation escalates. Don't wait to go to the authorities, and keep going until you get the help you need. And as always, no matter where you're traveling, make sure you inform someone about your plans before going anywhere. Tell someone reliable where you're going and what you'll be doing and when to expect you back. And my number one tip to staying alive on vacation is to pay attention to your gut. If something doesn't feel right, it isn't. Mieke Oort traveled across the world to study abroad, and her life was cut short by a man who stalked and murdered her. Unfortunately, stalking is a common crime, and there are few preventative measures, because stalking can happen to anyone at any time. And many survivors were stalked before they were 25 years old. So we need to prepare our young people to look for these behaviors and keep themselves safe. The Last Trip is creating awareness about what happened to Mieke in hopes that other lives will be saved. If you or someone you know is being stalked, please take it seriously. Document everything and go to the authorities. And stay safe. And finally, remember to leave a review and rate this podcast 5 stars if you like the show, or hell, even if you don't. But either way, feel free to let me know what you think. Please follow The Last Trip on Instagram at The Last Trip Crime Pod and subscribe on Patreon to support the show. You'll get extra research, videos, photos, and updates, and even learn more about my personal travels. That's patreon.com/The Last Trip Podcast. I'm Jamie Beebe, bringing you your last trip and signing off until the next one. Thanks for listening.